in the course of the court session, Nnamdi Kanu wanted to give his final written statement. Justice Omotosho kind of declined, saying that he gave some kind of technicalities involved in the court, and Nnamdi Kanu started insisting that it is his right, it is his determined right to give a final judgment. That where does it stipulate in the law that a defendant cannot give their final address before the court gives any judgment? An argument actually ensued between Justice James Omotosho and Nnamdi Kanu, and then in the process, Justice Omotosho warned him to comport himself. He kept on insisting, Nnamdi Kanu, comport yourself, and when that was not happening, then the court asked the DSS operators of the court to take him out of the court and said that in the next 5 minutes he will return. So Nnamdi Kanu blasted the court, shouted at Justice James Omotosho, said God will punish him, God is going to teach him a lesson, and warned the DSS operatives not to touch him, not to have anything to do with him. So as it stands right now, Justice James Omotosho is ruling out all the evidence that they say they have against him by the federal government of Nigeria, based on the evidences presented or stated by the witnesses that the federal government brought to court against Nnamdi Kanu. Obviously, you know that the prosecuting counsel is actually being headed by Wale Olanipekun. So I want us to take a very brief listen to Justice James Omotosho while he's ruling out Nnamdi Kanu's judgment.
Where they shouted away arms and ammunition from the armory and burned down the place. He stated that on the 30th day of May 2021, the defendant had ordered a seat at home in Southeast, but the late Ahmad Gulad was unfortunate, caught in the storm as he was trying to catch flight out of Owerri that day. PW4 said he was the first to get to the scene of that attack, where he found the disease in the pool of his blood. He was informed by the divisional police officer in the area that the disease was in a taxi heading for the airport when the iPod and Eastern Security Network armed combatants identified him as one of their checkpoints and opened fire on him.
Okay, so as it stands at this very moment, Justice James Omotosho is really now the judgment for Nnamdi Kanu, and Nigerians are actually watching in abated breath to hear what the judgment is going to be like. So there are already complaints that a lot of lies are being rolled out, but Justice James Omotosho is reading out based on the evidence that the federal government presented to the court.
Attacker shot him. The body was later moved and conveyed in a plane to Abuja on the directive of the former secretary to the government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa. PW4 stated that between 2019 and 2022, he was in charge of security enforcement in Imo, and he witnessed firsthand the activities of the defendant and his men. PW4 stated that the defendant is the leader of indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, as well as the founder and operator of Radio Biafra. He testified that the defendant used the said.
Well, if you've been to court before, you will know that they read out all the judgment, all the cases against whoever it is that is actually being dealt with in court. And in this time around, the defendant here is Nnamdi Kanu. Justice James Omotosho is reading out his judgment, and Nigerians, as you know, if you're watching the process on YouTube, are actually calling that Nnamdi Kanu should be freed. Some persons are saying that Nnamdi Kanu should be sentenced to life imprisonment. A couple of persons who are against him and against his comportment are saying that the court should actually sentence him.
In Kanu Port in Lagos, he said he did not find out the date the transmitter came into the country, as same was smuggled into the country, and that it was not part of his schedule to find out that there are no records to show it came in through Lagos, save for the statement of the defendant that it came through the Lagos port. It also stated that IPOB was formed outside Nigeria and that Radio Biafra was operated outside Nigeria but broadcast within the territory of Nigeria as it was an online platform. He further stated that the defendant was arrested in Lagos with his broadcasting equipment. He said it is not the duty of the DSS to find out if Radio Biafra was registered in London. PW4 stated that he and one of the officers were sent to Uguluzi moves up to recover the transmitter that they reported to the DSS headquarters in Oka, and from there they proceeded to where the container was located using coordinates on video showing the containers. They transmitted, they testified that the container contained one other items, including 2 pump action guns, one of which was found in the bedroom of Benjamin Madubulu, that the said Madubulu is facing a charge of illegal possession of weapon before Inyako jail. He also stated that even though the defendant stated that he does not like violence and crime, and that churches and other places of worship should not be attacked, his broadcast of 20th, 24th, 25th October 2020 clearly incited people to kill others. That the main thrust of the defendant broadcast is the killing of Fulani herdsmen, parading the forest of Southeast with AK-47, killing the innocent. He said he is not aware of any Fulani herdsmen being prosecuted for attacking people in Southeast states, Eastern states. PW4 admitted that Goodluck conducted the primary election that led to the emergence of the governor of Imo State, Hope Uzodinma, and that satisfaction over the declaration of Hope Uzodinma was still festering. He stated further that even though Ahmad Goodluck was with 2 other persons in the taxi, he was the only one killed. IPOB sometimes do not kill Igbo person who violates the sit-at-home order. He admitted that the defendant said IPOB will compensate the person which lorry of onions was hijacked, but he does not know if the promise was fulfilled by the defendant. PW4 stated that it was the police who investigated the killing of Ahmed and Article 7 and 28 of the African Charter and is therefore null and void. 2. That the declaration that the Federal High Court ex parte order prescribing IPOB obtained without notice or hearing, and why Justice Peter Inyako's sufficient ruling that IPOB is not an unlawful society remains in force, is unconstitutional, unlawful, and cannot ground criminality. 3. And order striking out or permanently staying count 1 to 8 saved count 15 of the amended charge dated 14th January 2022 for being barred by double jeopardy, having the same factual ingredient as count 6 to 14, earlier struck out by the Federal High Court on the 8th day of April 2022. 4. An order declaring that the defendant's extraordinary rendition from Kenya without extradition proceedings or due process violates section 36(1) and 9 of the Constitution, the Extradition Act, Cap E25, Law of Federation of Nigeria 2004, and Article 12 and 13 of the African Charter, thereby robbing the court of its jurisdiction. 5. An order nullifying all proceedings conducted in breach of the defendant's right to adequate facilities for defense, confidential communications with counsel, and for fair hearing, particularly dropping seizure of legal materials and denial of unmonitored access. The notice of preliminary objection has 43 paragraph affidavit deposed to by Ms. Emmanuel Kanu, a sibling to the defendant. The affidavit has 10 exhibits and written address. In his written address, the defendant submitted inter alia that the Court of Appeal in CA/ABJ/C/625/2022 had ruled in his favor on the 13th day of October 2022, holding that his extraordinary rendition has divested the trial court from continuing his trial. Thus, the instant trial is unlawful and in disobedience of the order of the appellate court. The defendant relied on the case of Okafor versus AG Anambra State citation supplied to submit that any child promised on repeat law cannot sustain and proceed to sustain any proceedings, that the provision under which his charge has been repealed by Terrorism Prevention Act 2022, and thus he has no life to sustain these proceedings. He also submitted that his extraordinary rendition, as well as not affording him adequate facilities, denies him of his fair hearing, and thus he urged the court to quash the instant proceedings against him. He also argued that the court is divested of jurisdiction as the subject matter of this charge is sub judice before the Supreme Court. He thus urged the court.
All right. So the Justice James Omotosho is still ruling out all the charges based on evidence presented by the court, also based on evidence presented by the federal government of Nigeria against Nnamdi Kanu. Remember that Nnamdi Kanu's case is in the High Court right about now, and I'm going to be speaking with a legal practitioner, Barrister Fred Nzako. He is going to be giving us the reality of what this means. If Justice James Omotosho gives his judgment in the Federal High Court today, then does it mean that Nnamdi Kanu can still appeal, all right, to another court that is superior to the High Court? We want to know if the judgment given by Justice James Omotosho determines Nnamdi Kanu's fate, and then before they proceed to the next possible court, the next level of the court process. Barrister Fred Nzako, thank you for joining me today on Estate Media Live. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Yes, thank you, Barrister Fred. So right about now, Nnamdi Kanu is not in court. He was asked to be taken out of court. Justice James Omotosho asked him to comport himself, but the argument continued. Nnamdi Kanu said they don't know the law. He was asking for his final address to be ruled out before Justice James Omotosho will give his judgment. But based on that imbroglio, the DSS took him out of the court. So right now, Justice James Omotosho, he's given his judgment in the absence of Nnamdi Kanu. Barrister Fred Nzako, while we are waiting, because right now Justice James Omotosho is ruling out all the evidences presented by the federal government and also the witnesses' account and what Nnamdi Kanu said in countering what the federal government of Nigeria said against him. While he's ruling out all of that out, Nigerians are, in bated breath, waiting for him to give his final judgment. But if he actually says Nnamdi Kanu is going to jail, can Nnamdi Kanu appeal it? What other level of court can he take this case to? And there's heightened security in the southeast today because of Nnamdi Kanu's case.
Yes, starting from the last, it's expected that there's need for heightened security because so many people are very, very apprehensive. In fact, most citizens will prefer to stay indoors in case there's breakdown of law and order, so that they will not become victims of the political issues that are going on. That is basic. Secondly, Nnamdi Kanu, this is court of first instance.
Okay.
This is the Federal High Court. After the judgment, if it does not favor him and does not go the way he expected, he is free to appeal. He still has the legitimate right. It's not just authority, but right to appeal if he so desires to the Court of Appeal, which is the Court of Next Instance, and also has the right, if that court also does not give him judgment that he expected, he also has the right to approach the Supreme Court, which is the apex and the last court in the land. Now, whether the issue of whether Nnamdi Kanu's absence or presence in court would mar the judgment. Ordinarily, in legal proceedings, the written address is not adopted the same day that judgment is given. Written address is adopted as the last effort by the litigants through their lawyers or by the litigants themselves. It is after the final address, we call it final address. It's after the final address that the court will set a date for judgment. On the day of judgment, nothing else is taken, because it is taken that both sides have closed their address and then have made their final submission. The final submission, after that, then judgment day will be announced. And now on that judgment day, the court will just come, the judge will deliver his judgment, and that is it. So if Nnamdi Kanu is insisting that his final address will be taken on the day that the judgment has been slated to be taken, that is not that does not follow the process of the court. So one should not say that there's no injustice done to Nnamdi Kanu for not taking his final address on the day the judgment was slated to be taken. Final address was supposed to have come earlier. I don't think if there's any injustice done to him, it is not in that regard. But if there's any injustice done to him, we are yet to see. We will see that after the final judgment of the court. Normally, judgment takes time because the court will look at all the issues from beginning to the end, especially in very contentious matters like that of Nnamdi Kanu. So it is expected that the court will look at all the issues, x-ray all the positions, because it is on the basis of all the issues canvassed on both sides that will form the basis for the judgment. So until we get the final judgment, then we will now know whether the justice has been served to Nnamdi Kanu or not.
While the court process is ongoing and Justice Omotosho is continuing with his ruling after he's been said, based on what you said now, it's not relevant whether Nnamdi Kanu is in court or not, and it doesn't necessarily matter whether he gave any written address, meaning that Justice James Omotosho going ahead with his judgment does not invalidate whatever court ruling he's about to give now, right?
It was expected that Nnamdi Kanu would have presented his written address earlier. But if he was never allowed to present his final address, then that means there is a breach of procedure, which is a ground for appeal. But if he had been given that option or that latitude or that opportunity to present his final address, and he fails not to, and decides to present it on the day of judgment, then one will not fault the court. Because procedurally, final addresses by all parties are presented before judgment day. Judgment day does not accommodate any other thing. It is the day of judgment, and that is what it is. Parties will come, sit in court, the judge will file out and deliver his her judgment. And the issue of whether Nnamdi Kanu ordinarily is supposed to be in court, but if he chooses not to be in court, it does not also. It's not a ground for claim of injustice, especially when his conduct in court was viewed as disruptive. And there's no way the judge will be delivering judgment while Nnamdi Kanu will be there speaking the way he has been speaking. So I don't think there's anything wrong in asking that he be taken away. The only thing is the crux of the matter lies in the judgment. All those things surrounding the judgment are of no issue. It is the judgment itself that is the crux of the matter. And that is why the court is giving, the judge is giving all the details. At the end of the day, people will now sit down, analyze all the details, and find out where the court misstepped. This is one person. He does not have monopoly of wisdom, and no judge will say that he will claim that he knows it all. And that is why, as human beings, we are bound to make some mistakes. And that is why by the time you go to appeal, there will be three justices to sit in judgment. And by the time you move further to the Supreme Court, about 5 or 7 of them, depending on the nature of the matter, will sit in judgment. So the whole idea is to exhaust all opportunities of making sure that justice is served. Justice is the bottom line, and then if once it is served, then one will not find fault with the process and the procedure, and that is why there are options of appeal.
Okay, right about now, Nnamdi Kanu's brother has raised an alarm that security surrounded his house. You know, that is Nnamdi Kanu's house is being surrounded by security operatives. Army has also dismissed fresh lockdown threats by terrorists in the south, saying it is baseless. However, today is Thursday, November 20. Some houses and some shops are really not opened. Everyone is focused on Justice James Omotosho's judgment on Nnamdi Kanu. However, there is apprehension. You know, for a while now, now the insecurity in the southeast has kind of reduced, aside from pockets of kidnappings along the highway or people getting home. But we haven't heard reports of killings and atrocities taking place, especially since Angel the Yahoo was, according to the Nigerian security, that they have apprehended him, or he's been taken, or he's been killed. But there's been a relative sense of orderliness in the southeast. Do you think that the judgment today, if it doesn't go positively, if Justice James Omotosho rules in favor of the federal government against Nnamdi Kanu, that there are expectations of uprising in the southeast? And what would that portend? What would that mean? Why would there be uprisings in the southeast against innocent Nigerians or innocent southeasterners there, when they are not the ones who actually gave the judgment against Nnamdi Kanu? Again, Justice James Omotosho is still reading out the judgment. What do you think about that?
Well, it is an anomaly. It's a very painful anomaly that innocent people will be suffering for the acts of others. And that is why it is very important that people be very careful and very conscious of the environment, so that they don't fall victims of this kind of high wire political, legal issues that are being experienced around Nnamdi Kanu's matter. And it is also important that many places be secured. Security men keeping watch over Nnamdi Kanu's place is expected, is normal. It could be for the protection. It is not at all times that the presence of security will be viewed negatively. Sometimes they are positive. In some cases, police can even keep somebody in custody. They call it protective custody. If somebody's presence in the society could be harmful to the person, then the police could keep the person in protective custody. For example, if a driver knocks down somebody and maybe the person dies, and there is a fear that there could be a mob attack by the community, the police will quickly step in and pick up that fellow, the driver, and keep him in custody. That is protective custody. Otherwise, the driver may be lynched by the mob, even without, because the mob can be very, very stupid sometimes. They call it headless mob. A mob that does not reason, a mob that does not even ask questions, a mob that does not even wait for answers. They just act on emotions. So sometimes security agencies would want to protect a person or a property or an asset by their presence. And I expect that their presence in the southeast today, especially today, should be to ensure that people are protected and not to begin to attack people. But those who want to unleash mayhem on innocent people, they themselves should be arrested by the security operatives, because the innocent people who are ordinarily minding their business did not cause anything that warrants they are being attacked. So I think on that note, the security operatives, their presence in Southeast is not only important on a day like this, but they should operate professionally to ensure that they do not overreach themselves, and ensure that innocent people are not attacked by any hoodlum who may be acting out of either emotion, mischief, or ignorance.
Barrister Fred Nzako, Nnamdi Kanu's case is a little bit of a distraction from the spate of insecurity that has pervaded Nigeria. There have been consistent attacks. When I mean back to back, we with the terrorism situation with the Brigadier General that was murdered, that was killed by ISWAP, and then the country being targeted or designated as a country of particular concern, with sanctions placed on some organizations in Nigeria, that's Miyetti Katal Hawaii. Also today as well, in the U.S. House of Parliament, there's going to be a decision made. There's going to be a hearing on the case of insecurity in Nigeria, specifically targeted against Christians. The Nigerian team has arrived to represent Nigeria. The chief of the National Security Advisor, in company of a couple of others as well, will be in the U.S. Parliament today. Deacon Anagwe, the priest who went in March to talk about the killing of Christians in Makurdi in Benue State in the UK Parliament, will also be speaking, as well as other witnesses concerning the genocide talk, in Nigeria against Christians. Now, Daily Trust yesterday or day before yesterday ruled out that it was separatist group Nigerians in Diaspora, which is the Biafran government in exile, they are the ones lobbying to actually call the situation in Nigeria a Christian genocide. It has gone viral now. The data boys and the supporters of the government have decided to retract and redirect or rechannel the conversation to the fact that it is IPOP and Biafran government in exile that is promoting the Christian genocide and having to cause unrest in Nigeria, cause religious differences in Nigeria, which could lead to genocide. Now, in the midst of all that, we saw a live stream, all right? We saw a live stream of these terrorists attacking a church in the midst of Trump paying close attention to Nigeria. Now, I don't know why the current government data boys are trying to redirect what is obvious in the presence of everybody. Everybody can see what is happening in the country. They're trying to redirect the attention and pin it on the Igbos. Do you think there is something else, a conspiracy going on? Do you also think that there is a genocidal attempt against an ethnic group? Is there a convergence by some certain persons in this government to start off what they started in 1966, being the fact that it is evident that it is some terrorists, either from Niger or Fulani terrorists, using Islam to promote genocide in Nigeria. They have decided to step up their attacks and dare Trump to come and do what he needs to do. Ever since the past 2 weeks, consistent attacks coming from a particular region. Barrister, how do you define that? And what is currently going on now in court with Nnamdi Kanu, whom was not seen with any metal, any gun, any weapon, anything whatsoever, being tried for treason. And then those who have been committing this crime or mayhem, we haven't seen any one of them, aside from one of them who recently was given 20 years in prison for terrorism that was evidently against him. They saw all the killings that were perpetrated. There is an imbalance, Barrister Fred. What are we doing? What is the government of Nigeria doing? What are they insinuating? What do they intend to cause by this imbalance in justice?
Actually, there is imbalance and there is justice, but the most critical aspect is that there's a lot of propaganda. Propaganda and truth do not mix. They don't go together. Truth avoids propaganda and propaganda avoids truth. Truth is constant. Propaganda can vary. Truth is with conscience, but propaganda sometimes goes without conscience. What we are seeing in Nigeria's insecurity situation is that they have elevated propaganda above truth. And they have elevated propaganda above reality and above actions. And that is why this insecurity in the land has refused to go. Because they have tried to bury the truth and then elevate propaganda to a very unreasonable and inhuman level. For anybody to begin to say there is no genocide amounts to elevation of propaganda. There is genocide by its definition, unless they want to redefine and reconstruct what genocide means. Genocide is not a vernacular word, it is an English word. You go to any English dictionary or any English thesaurus, and then you find out the meaning of genocide. What has been going on in Nigeria is genocide, and there's no argument about it. And now, for anybody to begin to spawn and spin the narrative to try to pin the security to Igbos is again trying to live in denial and live in fatal denial, for that matter, trying to go back to the pre-1966 to 1966 era. And it is amounts to pure hate. If we're talking about hate against a tribe, anybody who tries to ascribe to a tribe what they did not do, or try to pin the genocide narrative to the Igbos, it amounts to ethnic hatred, which must be condemned. What has been going on in Nigeria was not caused by the Igbos. The information that is available to the international community, including the United States, was not given to them by the Igbos. So if a few people in the diaspora are urging America to come, what of those who are within Nigeria that are also urging America to come? From all parts of the country, southwest, north central, southeast, south, northwest, and and even northeast. There is no senatorial zone in Nigeria where you don't have people that have been crying and asking that Nigeria be rescued. Asking America to come, they don't mean to recolonize Nigeria. It is to come and help Nigeria drive away the cancerous terrorists that have been bedeviling Nigeria's existence, killing people in large numbers since 2009. And the government has obviously proven incapable, especially in recent times, especially since 2015. The government has proven incapable of taming the terrorists. And again, the issue of propaganda. When the government will come and say that they have decimated the terrorists and no part of the country is under the hands of terrorists, whereas they know the truth that so many parts of this country are in hands of terrorists. A country where the sitting governor would openly be negotiating with terrorists and then be paying them to stop terrorizing the people. A situation where terrorists will come for a meeting, a so-called peace meeting, with all manner of arms and sophisticated, dangerous ammunition. And they will hold the meeting, collect money, and go back into wherever their camp was. The situation where an individual will be moving up and down, claiming with the name terrorist negotiator, and government will not ask questions. So what does that tell you? It tells you that Nigeria needs help. So anybody from any part of Nigeria or outside that supports the call for assistance and help to Nigeria has not done anything wrong. So if anybody tries to say, and leave all the cacophony of voices and all the legitimate calls by both Nigerians and neighbors of Nigeria, that America should come and help us to remove that cancer that has bedeviled Nigerian security situation, and you are trying to spin and tag it against the Igbos, then such a person needs to be pulled over for thorough teaching and examination. Because, again, it is a very wrong narrative. Nigerians of all walks of life that mean well for this environment, for the women mean well for this country, have asked that America and any other, not just America, any other country in this world that can help us should please come to our aid. They came before, they were driven away by the nebulous attitude of our security agencies, and whereby when they share intelligence with them, the intelligence leaks to the adverse party. And they decided that Nigeria was not ready, and they left. And that was many years back. But the matter has persisted. And they now see that they don't need to share intelligence with anybody. They need to come and take the right action and take away these terrorists. Nothing can be better than that. And anybody who works against it does not love Nigeria.
Barrister Fred Nzako, is quite unfortunate what Nigeria is currently going through. A couple of persons are saying what is happening right now is politically induced. The spate of killing so much, proving what the US is saying against Nigeria, the complicity and the complacency, lack of apathy from the government of the day to handle this. Some security operatives have come out to say that Nigeria is lacking ground troops, that they do not have ground troops to fight these guys. If you have watched the video that ISWAP released during the capture of the Brigadier General and the few Nigerian military personnel attached to him, you could see that there were very few. They were surrounded. These guys were carrying RPGs, weapons that are extremely expensive, Barrister Fred Nzako. You would wonder how these guys are heavily financed. Okay, and it's something that is worth looking into, and the government seems blind towards it. Ever since this country, a particular concern was designated on Nigeria, there have been all forms of information and propaganda, even from the aides of the government, trying to rechannel the focus to another ethnic group, or trying to rechannel the focus that it is not Christian genocide, it is basically scruples of insecurity ongoing. And the attacks have repeatedly continued. There is also an obvious show of porosity within our intelligence unit. Barrister Fred, the 25 abducted schoolgirls in Kebbi State, the Nigerian government headed the instruction given by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu that the Nigerian security should ensure that these girls are released. terrorists. Do you know that just yesterday, while the Nigerian army was conscripted to go rout out those girls, they were ambushed, they were attacked? There is a mole in Nigeria's security. There's a problem with our security architecture. These individuals have been allowed to grow, fester. In fact, Fox News, when Nicki Minaj was speaking, concerning the genocide in Nigeria, they said there are 22 or 24 terrorist groups in Nigeria. They found Nigeria as a safe haven to nurture, to fertile, to grow. 25 terrorist groups. How many army personnel do we have to work on this? With all the monies that have been given to our military to actually work on this, who is profiting from insecurity here? And how come justice is not given, especially to those who have been fighting against insecurity? Nnamdi Kanu is a clear picture of what Nigeria represents. What happens today if this man is sent to jail? Will he demoralize? Or will he foster and fester more dangerous antics by these individuals and prove a point that indeed insecurity and the justice towards insecurity is biased? I just need an objective perspective to this. We don't want sentiments.
Well, even in the county sentence, we will see the basis for the sentencing. And then, of course, that is the whole essence of this judgment that the judge is delivering today. The judgment will be made public. Now it is being televised. Then later, the hard copy, the written judgment will be made available. And the lawyers and experts will sit down and analyze the judgments. And where they find loopholes in the judgment, they will go on appeal. But that is not even the main issue. The main issue is, or rather, it is part of the main issue. Another main issue is that the problem of insecurity in Nigeria and the issue of insider conspiracy has long been there. Remember that President Jonathan said that inside his cabinet that there were terrorist sympathizers, that there were Boko Haram elements and sympathizers. Remember that some time ago, some sitting governors were named as financiers or coordinators of Boko Haram and terrorists in Nigeria. Remember that some time ago, even as we speak, everything points to the fact that within the rank and file of the Nigerian military system, there are people who are sympathizers to terrorists. Even under the government of Muhammad Buhari, a minister was said to be a full-blown sympathizer of terrorism. And it raised an issue. They brought out his speeches and his write-ups. And people expected that President Muhammad Buhari would have removed him, like Issa Pantami. He was never removed. He spent the whole 8 years of Buhari's administration. So the insecurity situation in Nigeria has been mixed with politics. It has also been mixed with tribal, ethnic, and religious sentimentalism. And that is where it becomes very difficult. Today, how many soldiers do we have? At most, between 200 and 250,000 soldiers. Taking care of internal security situation that's supposed to be basic work of the police. The police have been not only ill-equipped, they have been very poorly funded, and the corruption has not even allowed the little funding to be meaningfully utilized. So at the end of the day, soldiers are now being drafted to handle internal security situations. And that is why Nigerian soldiers are overstretched. Not to talk of the fact that even within the rank and file of the military, there is also massive corruption and massive internal sabotage.
Yeah.
Internal sabotage that has led to many people believe that the Brigadier General that was captured was because of internal sabotage. That if Nigerian military did all that we are supposed to have done, or if there was no sabotage, then there was no way the man could have been captured. Because some people even allude or accuse the system that while the man was sharing the location when he first escaped from the attackers, that somebody or some people were sharing that location with the ISWAP terrorists in the forest. That made it easy for them, using the gadgets of geography, to locate his hideout terminate him very easily. So it is a very deep-rooted problem. Some people even have written that because the man, Brigadier General Musa Oba, was a no-nonsense man who was not in support of economic profiteering from insecurity. That some people felt that he was blocking their source of money making, and then they assisted to place him in harm's way and abandon him when it mattered most. With all these conspiracy theories, it simply tells you that a lot is not going well in Nigeria. So many things are wrong with our system. So the earlier we start putting ourselves together as a country, the better. If such putting together will be with the assistance of another country or another authority or from outside, so be it. What is important is that this wanton destruction of lives and properties must stop. It must stop. Because while lives are being lost, properties are being lost, unity is being lost, the patriotic zeal of Nigerians has been frustrated, and ultimately the country is losing at many fronts. So how can we begin to form or forge a nation out of this country? And that is what the major challenge that every leader must be worried about.
Barrister Fred Nzako, you rightly disclosed, you actually said what a couple of Nigerians have been expecting the Nigerian government to do. While this case is actually on the lips of everyone is talking about it, everyone is watching closely. Based on whatever it is, Justice James Omotosho is still reeling out his judgment, he's still giving out his judgment. He has not yet been decisive, but the crux of the matter is this, Barrister, regardless of what Justice James Omotosho says today, which a couple of people predict that he's going to sentence Nnamdi Kanu. The prediction is already there. Omar Elisha already said that the plan is to sentence him. So let's just say, Barrister Fred, that Justice James Omotosho sentences him. What is the next thing that you expect him and his team, his consultancy team, because he's still they're his consultants, his lawyers are his consultants. What's the next line of action for them?
Immediately the sentence, immediately judgment is concluded and if eventually he's sentenced, they will immediately give a notice of appeal and ask and apply for CTC of the judgment so that they will file an appeal. And in filing the notice of appeal, they will also file, already, depending on the nature of the sentencing, if he was sentenced for treason is death sentence, then while filing the notice of appeal, they should also file the notice of a stay of execution. That is very important. Both notices are very important at the Court of Appeal. Notice of appeal and notice of stay of execution.
Barrister, hold on. Let me get you clear. If Justice James Omotosho gives his judgment today, and the judgment is, like you said, treason is a death sentence, what you would advise is that stay of execution, and what else? I need you to spell that out.
Stay of execution and the notice of appeal, very important. They will immediately file it. Stay of execution and notice of appeal. Of course, before one is executed, a governor will have to sign the execution warrant. So he cannot be executed. So nobody should be afraid that he will be executed because it takes some administrative processes before one is executed. It's only under the military where there is an abuse of fundamental rights of the citizen, where there is a breach of, in fact, there is no constitution. Everything is by military fiat. And that is how Kesarawiwa, immediately he was sentenced in the morning, and before the end of the day, he was executed. And because there was all these illegal finees were not followed up. So if the court today sentences Nnamdi Kanu, even if it is to terms of imprisonment, and not death sentence, whatever be the sentence, the lawyer will file notice of appeal and then file notice of self-execution. And once that is done, they follow up the appeal, because you cannot appeal without copies of the judgment. And the copies of judgment will not immediately be available today or tomorrow. It takes a couple of days to be compiled and certified. The number of copies that are required to file the appeal at the Court of Appeal. But I'm sure that is the next line to them. But if eventually he is let off the hook, then all that will not be necessary. Except if the SSS, that is the federal government through the SSS, will want to appeal. Because justice is two ways. You do justice to the accused, you also do justice to the prosecution. So if the court says Nnamdi Kanu should go for free, then federal government may say, no, we don't agree. They will now go on appeal. It does not mean that it's only the accused that can go to appeal. Appeal depends on the dynamics of the judgment and where the judgment lies.
All right, Barrister Zako, thank you so much. While Justice James Omotosho is reading out, we wanted to just get the implication of what this means, what the next line of action is. If there is any sentencing done today, how does it affect Nnamdi Kanu's future in detention, whether he'll be taken to Kirikiri immediately because his bail application was completely quashed. These are the specifics that I wanted to get from you, being a legal practitioner, to give us, an interpretation of what these technicalities are. I sincerely do appreciate you giving me your time to explain all of this. Regardless, what would be your advice to the Igbos who have been following this, who have empathy towards Nnamdi Kanu's case and what the case represents to Igbo in general? Because there's the feeling of marginalization, there's a feeling of people who have been marched on, stepped upon. They don't feel like they're part of Nigeria. They also feel that the government of the APC since Buhari's period has isolated them, excluded them, extrajudicial killings carried out on them. When it comes to the Igbos, justice is not fair. There is no objectivity. So they have always felt maligned. And Nnamdi Kanu's case represents something about if indeed this proves that they're part of Nigeria, or it's going to be an eternal thing, because they're still fighting and struggling for Biafra. A couple of them want Biafra, even if a couple of people will say, no, we don't want it, we still want a peaceful nation. But if you're part of a nation that is not showing you that you're part of them, this Nnamdi Kanu's case signals something. Some people think that if the federal government of Nigeria decides to have a political solution, it could give the Igbos a sense of hope, a sense of belonging, and the feeling that Igbos have been arbitrarily summarized to no longer be looked at as part of Nigeria ever since the Civil War. So for the Igbos, what would be your advice to them? Whatever outcome, whatever is the judgment that comes out today, what would be your advice?
Well, before I give the advice, let me quickly say that, Nnamdi Kanu had been kept in detention of the SSS.
Yes.
And he had applied to court to transfer him to Kuje prison. Yeah. And the court had declined his application. And he had been in SSS custody ever since, up to today. After this judgment of today, if the judgment does not go in favor of Nnamdi Kanu, then the court at this point will have no other option than to transfer him to the prison custody. Because assuming he's giving some terms of imprisonment, he cannot do his imprisonment in SSS custody. But the court will also take into consideration the number of years he has spent in SSS custody, depending on the charges where he was found guilty. So all those are technical issues that will be sorted out by that judgment of today. And as per the implication to Ndi Igbo, it is very obvious. Even the blind can see, and even the child can perceive that there is collective emotional, psychological burden on the head and the neck of every Igbo person. Where the Nigerian state does not only marginalize them, but also deprive them of infrastructure, deprive them of their self-esteem, deprive them of integration, deprive them of everything that makes for good citizenship. But because Nigeria as a country, as it is today, is in turmoil, everlasting turmoil. The turmoil is partly as a result of the injustice meted on Igbo. The Nigerian society must understand that an injustice to one breeds natural resentment against all. Part of the challenges that Nigeria is having today on its developmental paradigm is because the Nigerian society, the larger part of Nigerian society, always try to think of how to hold down the Igbos. And there seems to be a ceiling placed above the head of an average Igbo person by a strategic orchestrated ceiling. And you see that right from their cradle, that marginalization and the deprivation starts from primary school. When two children go to take examination to enter what you call unity school, which is federal government college, the score for the Igbo boy will be, the expectation from the Igbo boy will be sometimes 100% higher than the expectation from the other side. How on earth will a young Igbo boy at the age of 10 be expected to score 135, 140? Whereas the equivalent young boy from the north will be expected to score 5. That is a very clear case of injustice or marginalization. And meanwhile, they are going to where you call unity school. Where is unity in that school? Now, the same children will go to school. While they are in school, you will not even hear anything about a bursary or scholarship. Whereas the same boy that you have pampered from the north will be getting federal government bursary and federal government scholarship. And they wanted to come out of school. The Igbo boys still struggle and make higher grade, showing greater scholarship and ingenuity and knowledge. You see, abandon him and go and employ the one from the north that managed to pass out with let my people go great. So from the cradle, and even when a few of the Igbo boys now manage to get work in the same environment, you intentionally, structurally stunt their growth in the same workplace. To the extent that even if they are due for promotion, instead of them being promoted, you bring somebody from the state civil service in the north to come and head them at the federal level. All this structural, intentional marginalization of the people of the southeast has been going on for a very long time. And it is holding down Nigeria because they think they are undoing the Igbos, whereas they are undoing the whole of the country. To the extent that mediocrity has now taken over. The fruits of knowledge, intelligence, and ingenuity will now not be availed Nigerian environment. And that is why the number of people that are moving out of this country, the people that are being absorbed by foreign lands are more from the southeast. And they are making waves and developing the economies, the technology, and the societies of the countries that have absorbed them. And ultimately, Nigeria is one losing. And that is why Nigeria as a country cannot boast of anything in this current day and age. Nigeria cannot manufacture ordinary bicycle and you say this is fully made in Nigeria. Because if the young Igbo man, out of his ingenuity, has the technology to manufacture bicycle, that technology will be stunted and killed by the Nigerian society. We have seen that right from the end of the Civil War, that all the inventions, they allowed them to die in product. Ezekiel Uzogo had the prototype to produce a vehicle that even foreign countries were asking him to sell the prototype or be absorbed in them, but in India, but out of his patriotism, he decided to stay in Nigeria. And what happened? General Sani Abacha burnt the whole of that. Burnt it. Physically eliminated all the inventions and all the discoveries made by Dr. Ezekiel Uzogo. And the thing led to the man's early death. Ultimately, yes, Ezekiel Uzogo died, but ultimately, who is the biggest loser? It is Nigeria. So anytime Nigeria as a country tries to dehumanize or hold down the Igbos, they are holding down the entire country, because God has given everybody the right opportunity in his own wisdom to excel. The opportunities and the blessings given to the Igbos are different from that given to the Hausas, the Fulani, the Yorubas, and the rest. And that is why if we harmonize all these opportunities and blessings, that's how we grow. But when there is an intentional suppression of God's given talent, Nigeria will remain as a toddler. And that is why in everything that we do, instead of the country to move forward, the country is backsliding. Simply because in a bid to suppress the Igbos, you are suppressing justice. Nigeria is suppressing justice. Nigeria is suppressing merit. Nigeria is suppressing ingenuity. Nigeria is suppressing innovation. And Nigeria is ultimately suppressing growth and development.
All right.
Simple as that.
All right,
it's as simple as that. So at the end of the day, what is left for the Igbos is to ensure that they have internal cohesion. Internal cohesion in the southeast is the key to our development. Let us not answer the name that has been given to us by others who hate us, but let us answer the name that God has given us, so that we will continue to flourish. And that's all. Yes, on the Kanu's issue, it does not end today. Whether he is sentenced, if he is sentenced, the matter will not end today. If he is not sentenced, then we will still see how the government will assimilate the judgment of the court going forward.
Barrister Fred Nzako, thank you so much for giving us all of that insight. It was imperative that we got a logical comprehension of what is currently playing out in court. And so sentiments are not all over the place, pervading logic and objective thinking. That's basically why I called you to please give us a comprehensive insight into what Nnamdi Kanu's trial today portends, and what the judgment that will be ruled out by Justice James Omotosho literally identifies for his future, if that is the end of the road for him, or if there will still be more proceedings ahead, and the lessons to be learned amidst Nigeria trying to struggle with its unity, trying to struggle with its identity and its supposed oneness that it claims it represents. So, Barrister Fred Nzako, thank you so much. I sincerely do appreciate. So, if you recall, yes, thank you. So, we're still on the live, and for some of you who did not hear what transpired in court today when Nnamdi Kanu was giving his trying to speak or give his final written address before the altercation emerged, or the altercation took place, that led Justice James Omotosho to say, you know what, pack him, take him out of this court. We don't want this instance anymore. And it actually provoked Nnamdi Kanu to the point where he felt that he needed to be heard, he needed to be listened, he needed to give his final address. And in that case, there was a back and forth. In the process, Justice James Omotosho asked that the security operatives, that is the DSS, bundle him out of the court. In the process of doing that as well, Nnamdi Kanu laid a curse on Justice James Omotosho. So let's listen to this. Oh, by the way, the microphone in the court is faulty. It was bad. Could barely hear what Nnamdi Kanu was saying. The microphone wasn't clear. Nothing. Justice James Omotosho was reeling out the judgment. In some instances, it seemed not to be okay, let's listen to him.
Can you listen to the court? Can you listen to the court? I appeal to you to comport yourself. This temple of justice. Please, I beg you to comport yourself. Show me where it says beg you to comport yourself. Show me where it says you show me in the let them show me. Show me where it says You have the right to appeal after my. Can you excuse me? Let him out. Excuse him. Show me my photo. Show me. Show me my photo. Excuse him. Please. Please. Show me show me. Please get the microphone from him, please. I said, show me. Show me. Excuse me. Get the microphone from him. Leave it. This is a court of law. I'm under trial. I'm under trial. I have to speak. I am under trial and I have to speak. Listen to me. Listen to me, please. I am under trial. I am under trial. Please use the microphone. I'm under trial. Please. No, listen to me. Please. Wait. I'm asking a simple question. No, wait. Please. Hold on a second. I said, hold on. May I please your lordship? Please. May I refer to lordship for section 266 of ABLA? Second of law. What you're doing is not the law. Please. You don't know the law. Please. Show me. I said, show me. When you have the right to go to my right to find my face. Show me. That's what the Constitution says. Show me. Well, I will rise and come back. You cannot show me. Can you please get him out? I will come back. I rise. I'll give 5 minutes. Show me myself and break my right. Show me the place. Show me. Show me. Show me.
All right, so while Nnamdi Kanu was being taken out of court and at the entrance, towards the court, that is the main chamber, Nnamdi Kanu cursed Justice James Omotosho and said that it will not be well with him forever. And in the midst of insecurity already pervading the land, a couple of Nnamdi Kanu's video clips that he did while he was in the UK via Radio Biafra has been on repeat. A couple of persons have been calling him a prophet who saw the future, a prophet who saw the truth, a prophet who saw the future, a prophet who saw what was about to happen. And exactly some of the things he said is what is already taking place. The federal government of Nigeria have been asked to be very careful as Nigeria is at a crossroad with what is currently ongoing. A couple of people are going about their businesses. Actually, Nigeria is relatively calm in the sense of it. Psychologically, things are not really okay. People are depressed, to be honest with you, with what is currently ongoing. This is the festive period. People are supposed to travel, go to their various destinations, but there is apprehension with the insecurity already at play. Almost all regions, you can't even travel. If you even get to Ore, you'll thank God. And after Ore, if you're going to anywhere, you would have to keep your heart in your hands and praying to God that you get to your destination safe, especially for those traveling by road. This is the concern of a lot of Nigerians, that they don't know what is happening. They don't know how soon the case of insecurity will be handled and how decisive the government of the day will be. If there is a need of more recruitment of soldiers on ground, then they need to do that to combat these guys. If you go to the battlefield, these guys are many, so it's underwhelming. It's not a situation that gives a good morale to the soldiers on ground. Young soldiers, young boys have died in the cause of keeping Nigeria one, and it's at the instance of some political elites who have used these young boys for sacrifices, and they know what they're doing, and it's really sad. Young boys, no future. 20 something, 25 highest. You see how they're being killed by these terrorists. And so they're warning the Nigerian government to be extremely careful on how they handle cases of insecurity and how things are looked into proportionately. Cases of justice In the case of Nnamdi Kanu, a couple of persons have said that Justice James Omotosho showed a sense of professionalism. He was calm in the midst of, according to some persons, Nnamdi Kanu was deliberate, being provocative, and the utterances he made in court and the display in terms of his disposition towards the situation in court today. They said Justice James Omotosho was very professional. However, you heard Barrister Fred Nzako say whatever judgment is being given, which a couple of people think is going to be on the negative side, that the case will be appealed to go to the appeal court, then therefore the process through which the case should be filed, because if it is treason, it's execution, and execution, not that it's literal execution per se, but they would have to appeal for a stay of execution. A couple of Nigerians are happy that this is happening, especially those of other ethnic groups who believe that Nnamdi Kanu is culpable and is guilty of the charges against him by the federal government. But as it stands right now, let's see how it goes. We'll update you right here on STIC Media. Kindly subscribe, like, and share. It's imperative that we grow together. I'll give you an unobstructive conversations from a logical, intellectually edifiable lens and thought and reasoning to issues that affect Nigeria. Bye for now.